All right, I'm about to drop some knowledge on you people around remarketing or retargeting, or I don't know, people call it a lot of different things, but I'm going to call it remarketing today. We're going to talk about marketing in general and how remarketing fits into the whole your marketing channel strategy, and then what it takes to be successful with remarketing and why remarketing works. So start off with, here's a little bit about me. So I've got about 20 years of experience. About half of that is in ad tech, and about half of that is as a consultant. So I had a fake job as a consultant for a number of years, and then I went and learned about ad tech. I'm currently at LiveRamp. I don't know if people have heard of LiveRamp, but we basically enable you to take your CRM data or any sort of internal first-party data that you have and make it actionable online. Right now I'm leading the launch of a new product for publishers where we're going to enable publishers to offer custom audiences in the same way that you can on Facebook and Google today. And so that's also, in a way tied to what we're talking about today, remarketing. So I just wanted to get a sense from the folks in the room. What about you guys? Are you guys B2B, B2C, mobile? How many people here are B2B? Okay. How many people here are B2C? How many people don't know? Okay, good. So let's look like about 50-50. How many people here are mobile only? Okay, great. And then how many people here today are doing some sort of retargeting or remarketing already? Fantastic. So how just so I know, like how deep, how much have you been doing?
Quite a bit. It's going pretty well.
Yeah? You're, is it one of your better performing campaigns? Yes. So I didn't even plan for that, by the way, but that works out perfectly because why is remarketing valuable? It's because somebody has indicated intent. They visited your site. They've engaged with you in some way. It doesn't have to be that they visited your site. You could have an email list. Customers could have given you you could have captured emails somehow. You could have bought the list somewhere. But in theory, you're getting people that have visited your website or searched for your product or they've engaged with your app in some way. Signed up for a newsletter, they've raised their hand and they have said that they are interested. And here's the thing, like you've spent money to get those people to your site. You've already spent that money somehow, like you were doing a search campaign or you've been doing some branding or you've been doing something to get people to come to your site, your app or your property, whatever. You've already done the work to get them there and for some reason, they did not purchase. There's lots of reasons why people don't purchase. You guys are consumers yourselves. You can think of hundreds, if not thousands, of reasons as to why you wouldn't end up purchasing a product or a service at a particular point in time and might want to come back later. And so retargeting and remarketing campaigns perform incredibly well because they are an indicator of intent. And with marketing, raising your hand equals intent, and intent generally delivers strong ROI. And what I have up here is, this is just a great example. So my wife and I were putting together our Christmas card for last year. I always like to include a picture of my son in my presentations because I feel like it makes people like me more because my son is cute. And so anyways, this is my family. We spent a bunch of time. Trying to design the picture and everything, and we spent a bunch of time on their site, but we kept on going back. We couldn't quite pull the trigger to purchase, right? And so, like good marketers that they are, I ended up getting retargeted all the time by Tiny Prints to basically go finish my card. Now, the problem is that what Tiny Print should have been doing is they should have been making this a little bit more dynamic, right? They should have been able to find a way to at least use the background that I was using in the card or something like that. And we can talk about optimization techniques and things like that. But I'm on the site, raised my hand, said I'm interested, and now you're showing me these ads and you're showing me them quite often. And so the reason why all this works so well for marketers is because marketing is just all about math, right? And so the thing that marketers usually care about is ROAS. I don't know if have you guys heard of ROAS? Has that been a metric that people have talked about? Yes, no, maybe so? Nope. ROAS is return on ad spend. So it's basically your revenue over your ad spend. That's typically, if you're a consumer company, that's probably the metric that you will end up caring about. Ultimately, it gets to CPA. You can see RPA, which is just your revenue, which is an established number, and then there's CPA, which is your cost. And so the reason why remarketing works so well is these two pieces right here in this funnel. So I'll just walk through the funnel real quick. So I know you guys have been talking about marketing all week, but I just want to give some context real quick on what I'm talking about here with the chart. So you've got ROAS as your base metric, and then that's based on revenue per acquired customer and cost per acquired customer. CPA, which is the number that everybody in here should know what your target CPA is. If you don't know what your target CPA is, I would figure that out pretty quickly, because that is the foundation to knowing whether or not your marketing is working and which campaigns are working better, is figuring out that CPA. And so you should have a target CPA that you're looking for. CPA is based on the cost per click and the conversion rate. The cost per click is based on the eCPM and the CTR, and the eCPM is based off of the bid and the differential between the bid price and your price, or what you actually pay. And the reason why retargeting and remarketing works so well is because of these two levers right here, conversion rate and CTR. So you'll find that your remarketing conversion rate will be, maybe 5x what a regular conversion rate would be, possibly even higher than that, maybe even 10x what your regular conversion rate will be. You'll see a CTR that will certainly be 5 to 10x, and sometimes even more than that. For instance, if you compare just a regular display campaign, you're looking at probably, a 0.5% CTR, and you can get a CTR of up to 5 or 10% with remarketing, right? So you can see why the math just ends up working out for you, and you're able to bid so much more smarter and effectively, right? Because you're going after people that you know are great prospective customers. Does this all make sense to folks? Cool. So, getting started with remarketing. So there are a few places you can do remarketing via Google. Both they have a way to do it with GDN and with search. Facebook, Twitter. I still have not heard anybody. I have yet to hear anybody tell me that they have had a successful campaign on Twitter. So, not to hate on Twitter. That was not a negative Twitter comment. They're great people, but I just haven't heard any marketers say that they've had great success using Twitter, and then YouTube as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about what you need to do to get started. So there's going to be like a technical aspect of placing pixels and making sure that you are able to follow the people that you want to follow on the internet, to make sure that they're you know who those people are. Making sure you have the right tags in place. But there's also vendors that you can use. So you can go directly, and we're going to talk a little bit about Facebook custom audiences in a second and how you can do that directly. But you can also use a third-party provider to help you with this. And the two sort of choices that you'll basically have out there are Criteo and AdRoll. And for many of the people in this room, I would suggest AdRoll. AdRoll specializes on working with smaller companies, smaller budgets. It's self-serve, and they make it really, really easy for you. Now, you're paying them 10% is the thing. So if you can do it by yourself without using a third party, you're going to save yourself 10%. But if you're thinking, I just need to get this up and going as soon as possible, check out somebody like AdRoll to help you get up and going. So let's talk about Facebook custom audiences, because this is where I think. If you are not currently running a retargeting campaign on Facebook today as part of your marketing spend, then I think this is probably the most valuable place that you should be placing your money. You should be starting the minute I am done talking. If you do not have a campaign on Facebook retargeting people that have come to your website, you should do that immediately. That is a no regrets move. You'll find Facebook makes it really, really easy for you to structure your campaign, set up your campaign. You don't need to use somebody like AdRoll to work with Facebook's custom audiences. With Facebook, the news feed is really where you want to be. The performance is super high on the news feed, especially if you have anything. If you're selling a product, like if you're selling clothing, if you're selling jewelry, if you're selling anything that has where having a nice picture is valuable, then you want to be in the news feed. That you want to take advantage of that. The difference between news feed and right-hand side, when we go back to that math that I was talking about, the CTR is just ridiculously higher than the right-hand column. So definitely start a Facebook custom audience campaign, and it just as an example for how easy it is to start a Facebook custom audience campaign. All you have to do is you go to Facebook and you go to audiences and just click on this create audience button, and they walk you through the entire thing. They hold your hand through the entire thing. So I suggested that you guys should immediately be doing something related to the traffic that's coming to your website already. And with that, what they'll be able to do is give you a pixel that you can place so that they can track the people on your website, and they'll also give you a conversion pixel so you can track your conversions as well. It's really, really, really easy to be able to set this up. And you know, if you want to, I cannot express strongly enough how important I would say it would be for you to set up a retargeting campaign on Facebook for people that have come to your site, especially if you're a B2C company like this. This should be part of an immediate part of your plan. So let's talk about metrics or let's talk about management, how you manage the campaign, right? And you're going to manage the campaign in the same way that you would any other online digital marketing campaign, right? You're going to sort of define your performance metrics, what your attribution and time frame is. And so one of the things to keep in mind is your success is going to be based on whatever you determine or how you decide you want to define your success. So do you want your attribution to be post view through or post click? How do you want that attribution to be handled? Your campaign will look much more successful if it has post view through, but it's maybe not the best indicator of success. I would suggest using post click as your sort of as your attribution, and I would want it within 30 days is the most that I would go for an attribution window. I would think that there are a lot of arguments for keeping that attribution window even within the 7-day time frame, right? The more restrictive you make the metrics that the inputs, the worse your campaign might look like it's performing, or the worse it might your conversion rate might look lower, your CTR might look lower, but it's because they're based on different attribution windows. And so keep in mind your attribution window when you're launching these campaigns, and then as you're comparing the campaigns to each other. And again, the big thing that you need to define here is what is your CPA, what is your target ROAS. Know that number before you start the campaign. Figure that number out before you start the campaign, so that way you have an idea of what success looks like and can easily define success. With retargeting, because you're usually reaching out to people that have visited your website, or they've interacted with you, engaged with you in some way. Creative and landing pages can end up mattering quite a bit. Because if you are, for instance, if you are selling clothing, you could do, and I'll go back to, oops. So if you can imagine that this was this shirt that I bought at Nordstrom's, whatever, that was the site that I was on. You want to try to show the shirt itself, not just an ad for Nordstrom's. You want to really carefully consider what your landing pages look like, what your creative is. The ad copy that you use should be tied to the product itself and the campaign, and which is tough to do if you're doing any sort of dynamic campaign where you've got hundreds or thousands of different products that you're showing. You might need to make sure that your ad copy is a little bit broader so it fits in with all those different types of products that you could be showing. The next thing is to think about how complicated your product is, how complicated your marketing program is, and think about what you actually need out of this campaign, right? So if you have one product that you're selling, that's one type of retargeting campaign that you can run. You don't need to worry about it being dynamic. The stuff that I said about creative, you want to focus on having a really awesome creative for that single product. You don't need to be dynamic or anything like that. And you can have very specific ad copy and test tons of different ad copy against that single product. If you've got 100, 1,000, 1,000,000 products, then you want to start thinking about running dynamic campaigns where the product that is being shown is the actual product that the customer looked at. The difference in performance between a dynamic campaign versus a non-dynamic campaign for a retailer can be CTRs of 3 to 5x and conversion rates of about about that same range, about 3 to 5x or so for conversion rates. If you compare doing dynamic to non-dynamic, if in fact dynamic matters. For the people that are B2C, how many of you have more than 100 products that you're selling? How many products? Close to 200. Okay. Everybody else, nobody else has more than 100 products that you're selling. So, if you're selling, less than 100 products, then you can probably get away with just having separate campaigns for each product. But if you've got like 200 products, you're going to want to set up some sort of dynamic campaign so that the creative automatically adjusts for each ad. So I want to go back to the marketing is math page. And so when we talk about optimization, what I love about retargeting is that, what I love about marketing, online marketing, is that it is all math driven. And so to figure out what's working and not working, or to figure out what you need to be doing to optimize or whatever, you just use math to get there. But what's great about retargeting is that that your conversion rate, your CTR, are going to be higher than your other campaigns. And what you need to then think about is how do you get as much out of that as possible, right? And so some of the levers that you'll be able to influence that are going to be important for optimization of your campaign, because you're going to start your campaign and it's not going to work as well as you'd like it to work right away. Maybe it will, and you get lucky, and that's fantastic. But expect that it's going to take some iteration to get your campaigns to work. And so the main levers that we use in retargeting are frequency, recency, your bid, and additional targeting, sort of next level targeting, like things like time of day. And so frequency is how many times you want to show this ad to this person. Do you want to show it to them 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, one time? Recency is how long ago since they visited your site do you want to be showing them an ad? And so if somebody visited your site, let's say 2 months ago, probably not worth a lot to retarget those people, right? If they visited your site yesterday, you probably want to retarget that person, right? Because that person is fresh. But somebody that visited 2 months ago probably doesn't make sense. I typically think that in terms of recency, you want to have probably, depending on the product and the sales cycle, you probably want to have at least a different campaign for somebody that's been at your site within a day versus been at your site within a week versus been at your site within a month. Anything past a month, I think that retargeting ad is probably wasted on that person. So, yes.
Best practices in general, it's like a month after that.
I think so. I think some people will argue that if you can pay next to nothing for the impression, then you should take the impression at 2 months. But I just think the benefits that you get from retargeting decrease the further away you go from when they actually engage with your property.
So technically, if you had set up an audience that was viewing a certain product from, let's say, 4 months ago, and you were never going to sell that product again, but maybe down the line you wanted to sell that product, if you didn't keep the attribution window open as long as possible, would you have lost all that data or that audience, essentially?
So say that ask the question again.
So say you were selling, let's just say it's the clothing, just for the sake of whatever.
Right.
So you're selling a necktie today, and then you don't sell another necktie ever again for another, let's say, 6 months or 4 months from now. And it's off your radar. You say, let's go sell more neckties. If you don't keep the recency window at like 180 days or whatever, would you have lost all those people?
Yeah. So the question is, if you change if your recency window is at 30 days, let's say, and you for some reason like you ran out of product and now it's 4 months later and you want to go and target those people, you'll have to build up that audience again. You've lost that data, right?
There's no tricks around saving that.
No, and what I would do is, there are other ways around that, right? Just because those people are not good for, a website retargeting campaign, you might want to put those people in your in some sort of CRM database and target them with email newsletters or there are lots of other things that you can be doing to retarget those people. But I would have a different approach. I would have a different campaign for that. It's probably less important, for instance, for it to be dynamic. But I would in general, I think 30 days is about the industry best practice for sort of how long you want to, the recency window that you want to set. Your bid, clearly super important, because that's the starting number that's going to determine whether or not you're going to hit your target CPA. Facebook will tell you a recommended bid to get you started, but that's one of the things that you're going to probably be changing depending on what your conversion rate and your CTR are. You're going to want to be adjusting your bid to make sure that you're hitting your target CPA. And then finally, there are lots of other targeting options available, even though you're with retargeting, right? So time of day is a great example. It's unlikely that if somebody is on Facebook at 3 a.m, that is probably the best time to serve them an ad. You might want to avoid, the midnight to 6 time period or whatever. Yeah.
So when you say time zone, Facebook knows
Yep.
the time zone of the viewer, not the customer?
It's the person. The Facebook does it based on the time zone of the person that would be viewing the ad. So it isn't based on the time zone that you are in. Yeah. So you can set it up so that it's midnight to 6 for all customers, but you'll still be showing ads at all times of the day because if you have a global audience, right? So there's additional targeting such as time of day. you can add other things to restrict who you're showing the ad to make it more narrow. As you do that, so in general with retargeting, I think it makes less sense to add in restrictions or further targeting, because all you're doing is narrowing your audience. And you already have a high intent audience that you're going after, so you probably don't need to restrict that audience as much. But I do think it makes sense to do some basic things like not show ads from 12 to 6 or 2 to 4 or some period of time overnight. There's a couple things I wanted to bring up that you need to think about just as you're doing retargeting for sure, but also just online marketing. So the state of cookie-based advertising, I don't know if you guys have heard, but Apple and other folks are making it more and more challenging for people to place cookies and follow folks on the internet. So today this works well because of cookie-based, because you're able to be drop cookies, but it will be more challenging in the future as cookies become less and less popular, and you'll have to find other solutions to be able to retarget people. So keep that in mind. The reason why Facebook is so great is that Facebook is a closed network, right? So you don't need to worry about cookies as much with them. And the other thing they need to think about is attribution challenges. So, you're running these campaigns, right? And you're running a retargeting campaign. Somebody came to your site. They already came to your site from some other marketing channel. Even if it was a direct navigation, that I still consider that that's a marketing channel. They somehow decided to direct nav to your site, right? So one of the challenges with retargeting is attribution. How do you think about attribution? And do you think about attribution as this is the ROAS for my retargeting campaign, this is the ROAS for my SEM campaign, and you just need to sort of factor in into that analysis. You need to factor in the fact that you've already invested some money in the marketing to get that person to your site. So it isn't your CPA. Your straight CPA from just doing the math is going to be probably a little bit lower than really what the total cost of acquiring that customer is. But don't let that deter you from doing retargeting. So yes.
How do you determine how much ad spend to use for? Because you don't know from what mobile, web, from offline marketing. How do you determine how much to spend going forward?
On retargeting or?
Specifically, retargeting ad spend.
So I think you want to spend as much as you can up until you hit your target CPA. So figure out whatever your target CPA is for the campaign, and then spend as much until you hit that target CPA. The more you spend, the more volume you're going to buy, the more expensive each incremental impression is going to get. Therefore, your CPA is probably going to go up as you spend more money. So you want to spend as much as you can while still hitting your target CPA. Now, if you are just, killing it and you're way below your target CPA, then I would say reconsider whether or not that's your target CPA or not. Markets are efficient, so you should be close to hitting your target CPA if you're doing things correctly. That's all I wanted to leave some time for questions at the end. That's all I have in terms of content, but happy to answer questions.
You create multiple Facebook custom audiences, like traffic, email, and then if they does Facebook know that it's the same person? Could that person potentially be getting the same ad multiple times?
Yeah, so yes. So if you put somebody in multiple custom audiences, they will receive they could receive the same ad. If you're showing the same ad copy in multiple custom audiences, then that person will receive the same. That person will receive the same ad, and your frequency. You might set a frequency for the campaign at 10, and if you've got that person in 3 custom audiences, their frequency would actually be 30. Right? They would add up each individual person, or each individual campaign would get its own frequency cap. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. How do you handle that with, say you have collected somebody's email address, you see intent on a specific page, do you just choose for a sublist not to be part of another list?
Yeah. So you can take people out of custom audiences as well. So you can add people in, and you can also set it up so that it doesn't advertise to certain people to limit your, so you're not overlapping if you have those people in another campaign. Behind you?
Quickly, so imagine we already have our custom audience, let's say, just use Facebook, something like that. Well, when you're on Facebook and you want to serve people ads, Facebook gives you the opportunity to serve, let's say, any audience with customer knowledge or one of the things. It says, like, what do you want to do? Post engagement, CPC, daily, max daily impressions, max daily unique reach, max whatever. What would you think when you go into that granular thing about what algorithm to use? Is it always highest CPC?
So generally, yes. I would. I think the ideal is if you can get it to, actually, if you can do it on a CPA basis, that is probably the most ideal from being able to manage your CPA, but you're going to be restricted a little bit on volume. And so, sorry, just the question that was asked was, as you're thinking about launching the campaign, which sort of metrics do you use or which metrics do you want to tell Facebook to use? And so I generally focus on CPC. Sometimes if I'm just starting a campaign, I'll start with CPM because that'll get me a bunch of volume, and I'll be able to figure out what the CPC is, or what my CTR is, what my conversion rate is. It just gives me enough volume so I can learn. If you have the money to invest to learn, then that's what I would do. I would start with the CPM and then move to CPC. And ultimately, if you can get to CPA, then that's the most ideal.
What's your process for switching up the creatives? You don't serve the same creative or copy person, and how do you take that into consideration when you're testing different?
So Facebook, again, is awesome with this. So they allow you to, when you're doing your analysis of your campaign, they actually will show you the performance by creative. And so they'll make sure that, it's like when you're setting up the campaign, you can have it switch between 2 creatives, 4 creatives, 8 creatives, however many. I'm sure that there's a limit as to the number of creatives, but you can put as many creatives in as possible, or as you want, I think, and then Facebook will make sure that they're distributed evenly. There's a question over here somewhere. I thought. I think that person left. Okay. Any other? Oh yes.
Is there certain places that we can look to for benchmark CPAs for specific things, like downloads or particular for sectors?
So CPA, I would say, is going to be. I think you can probably find that out there. Like, Nanigans does a report. If you're talking about apps, then App Annie, I think, might have some data. But the CPA piece is really more like that's really more based on your economics as to what your CPA should be, your own economics. But what you can get, so in that Nanigans report, what Nanigans will tell you is what the average CTR is by industry, the average conversion rate by industry, and average ECPM by industry. So you can sort of figure out, at least by industry, what you should expect.
How do you spell that?
Nanigans, Nannigans, I think.
Well, thank you. Want to
What?
N-A-N.
Oh, one N, sorry. You former nanigans? Other questions? Anybody? Yes? Say that again. Right. So the biggest difference between B2B and B2C retargeting tends to be your audience size. Right. So with B2B, you're going to be more targeted with who you're going after. It's a very specific person, and so you're going to have a smaller audience size, and there are places like LinkedIn, for instance, which are going to work better for you than probably Facebook. Maybe might work better. Facebook still has a better product, right? But you might change your approach to go to more towards LinkedIn or things like that. I would argue that for B2B companies, retargeting is crucial because you know who your buyers are typically, right? Like your buyers are people that you know that you can find on LinkedIn. You can add those people to a custom audience pretty quickly and easily. So I would say that it's more crucial than for a B2B company, just because that way you're not spraying a bunch of marketing all over the internet that is not reaching the right people.
In your opinion, is there a good ROI on Facebook retargeting on mobile?
So that depends on attribution. So if you are looking at mobile to mobile conversion rates, that'll give you sort of one CPA. But if you look at mobile to desktop conversion rates, which I think Facebook now factors in, but they used to not factor in. It used to be just mobile to mobile conversion rates. It will if you include desktop in there, it's going to work a lot better. But I think that the challenge with mobile today is still that there is high CTR on mobile, but the conversion rates are still lower-ish, right? But the fact is, that's where the audience is right now, is on mobile. So if you want to reach people, then you're going to have to go mobile, and it's just going to be harder to make it work. Don't get too excited by the high CTRs that you see with mobile, right?
When you're looking at your own retargeting metrics, especially Facebook, how do you get past Facebook's incredibly tweaky attribution modeling? So pretty much the outputting of data, like how do you compensate for that?
So you can change the Facebook attribution. You can change within the settings the attribution that Facebook is using to optimize your campaign, right? So that's one, because their standard is, I think, 30-day click and 1-day view through, I think. Yeah. If anybody ever purchases a product ever, we yes. So part of it is you can handle on your own. You can go and they have. So the good thing is that Facebook has everything, sort of on a silver platter for you, and it can be. You can not know anything and launch a campaign, right? But there's lots of stuff that you can go in and adjust. And one of the things that Facebook does is that attribution piece, and so you can manually adjust that yourself. And then you can actually also you can look at conversion by attribution window, so you can see the difference between 30-day and 7-day. So I've used YouTube a little bit for remarketing. It's not as easy and user friendly, I think, as Facebook can be, or even GDN can be. But you get the benefit of video, right? What I've found actually is there are certain categories that perform really well with video, and there are certain categories that don't perform well with video, and so it matters more so what category you're in, what industry you're in, what you're trying to do, as to whether or not the YouTube is going to work for you. And so I would say it's not as much of a slam dunk as other sources. But if you feel like video is an important channel for you to reach, then I would say YouTube is a great opportunity. If you feel like you have great video content, right, then I would say YouTube is a good opportunity. You should consider it. But it's just, it doesn't work, for some reason it doesn't work for certain categories.
Yeah, so just to go on with that, so would you remarket to someone with YouTube once they've visited your website, or would you, let's say, use like a display network after they've viewed the video?
Well, I would do YouTube after they visit the website, and then what's the next?
Just from what I've seen on AdWords, you can actually like record people that have watched a YouTube ad
Right.
and then remarket to them later on the display network.
So I would still say that that's not, so them seeing your video, I would not consider to be intent, right? I would definitely consider that to be a different campaign than a retargeting than a pure retargeting campaign, because they haven't actually gone to your site, they haven't engaged with your product, they've seen an ad, right? That would be more about whether or not you can get that to work for you, right? To get that, you can spend not very much money on the YouTube to get the broad reach, and then hopefully you've targeted those users correctly, and so you've got the right users that can then come to your site.
Just wondering the comparison, like retargeting campaigns, like specifically comedy and imagery that work really, really well, whether it was surprisingly work completely predictable because it was like
Yeah. So at Trigget, we worked with a lot of travel companies, and we had one travel company that had bright, beautiful images of their hotel properties, and we had another one that had just whatever images they happened to have, right? And so like it would be, we're talking about the difference between, the Marriott Marquis and showing like a beautiful picture of the Marriott Marquis at night with the lights on and whatnot, versus showing the parking lot next to the Marriott Marquis. And so one of our advertisers would show the parking lot next to the Marriott Marquis as their picture in their ad, versus the really beautiful nighttime picture, right? And so that, you think, would be, that is an obvious example, I think, of where the payoff is noticeable. But it was huge. I mean, the click-through rates between the two companies weren't even in the same ballpark, right? They were just the picture had that much impact on the CTRs that they had. So that's one example of where it worked in the way that we thought it would work, but it was really hard to get the advertiser to get us different updated pictures that we could use. An example of something where it didn't work in the way that I think we thought it was going to work is so we ran a campaign for Home Depot around like high priced items, and we thought that what we could do was pay a crap ton of money for those high priced items, but just really target those, like refrigerators, ovens, those sorts of things, right? And what ended up happening is that the conversion rate was just so low on those high priced items that we could not get the campaigns to work. Part of that, I think, is because the conversions were happening offline, right? They were happening actually at the store, and Home Depot, at least at that time, did not have the ability. We did not have the ability at that time to combine offline transactions into our conversion data, so it looked like it wasn't working. I still think it probably didn't work either. Even if we would have been able to factor in the offline transactions, but I think the higher the price of the product, the harder it is for retargeting to work, because you need lots of people to go to your site and look at that product to get the conversion rate to be able to convert customers.
What was the timing of that retargeting? For that window, right? Was it one window, pretty quickly closed after the initial?
And we did it for like 3 months.
Did you put thought into the underlying item that you were trying to sell? So the shopping cycles were different items than the traditional cycle. A refrigerator might be a shorter cycle than a car.
Right. So yes, we factored that in. That's why we did it for 3 months as opposed to, just a month or a week. The great thing about online marketing is it doesn't take very long to get a lot of data, right? But because the decision cycle for a refrigerator is longer than, say, the decision cycle on a hammer, right, for Home Depot, then we needed to extend it out and extend the attribution out as well, attribution window out as well, and it still didn't work. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes.
I think you already mentioned this, but I just want to get some numbers around how many touches it takes before somebody converts. An average or something like that.
So the answer is you can certainly figure that out, but it varies widely from client to client, industry. Even within the same industry, different clients will have different metrics, and so and really it depends on it depends on a lot of things. Like it depends on the product itself. It depends on the brand recognition of the advertiser. Like for instance, if you're talking about Home Depot, people know the Home Depot brand. Compare that to, Joe's Hardware Store. It's gonna take more touches for Joe's Hardware Store, because Joe's Hardware Store has to get in the head of the consumer a little bit more, right? So it really depends on each individual. I mean, we had it down to a product at the company level. All right, well, thank you guys very much for your time. I appreciate it.